Welcome to your Sagittarius horoscopes for the week of March 31st through April 6th. And it's officially Mercury retrograde week. We have fire retrogrades this week. So we are in our first Mercury retrograde in our first fire sign, which is Aries. And the Mercury retrogrades do tend to be a little bit more volatile in fire signs, as you Sagittarians well know, I'm sure. Your energy it is what it is. There's nothing bad. There's nothing, right, wrong, or indifferent about it. It is what it is. I love my Aries friends. I love my Sagittarian friends. They're some of the most fun people I have known in my entire life. But I would not want to be in front of them when they're angry and their anger is directed at me, if that makes sense. I try to avoid that like the plague. Just get out of the way and let things happen and then clean up the mess afterwards. We're kicking off the week with the moon in Sagittarius because we ended the week last week with the moon in Sagittarius, which is just before that Mercury retrograde starts on Tuesday, I do believe it is. Um, What's interesting here is that the moon's focus really is on your day-to-day schedule. So that does indicate some challenges there, or hiccups, wrenches in your schedule kind of a thing, which Mercury's retrograde would also be responsible for. And while the retrograde hasn't quite started yet, we are in the shadow period. And I've already seen these little stupid phone things and computer things and things like that that just aren't working right. So bottom line here is what's interesting about the moon kicking off the week, and we only have it for the one day, which is good, is that the moon is in a square with Venus and Neptune, which are both focused on career right now. But the moon is in a trine with Mercury, which is also focused on career right now. And while this seems like a huge challenge that could really hold you back or get in your way, the interesting thing here to me is that the moon, which is a feminine planet, is in a square with two other feminine planets. It's basically saying maybe your creativity towards your career goals is a little bit stifled, but Mercury is logic. Mercury is about getting things done. It's about coming up with ideas and actually doing something, putting them into place here. So I feel that this is actually, I mean, it is a challenge, but it could be a challenge that is really blown out of proportion. Yes, maybe you may not be able to approach these goals in the way that you would like to. So change your approach and look at it from a different perspective. And by changing your approach and looking at it from a different perspective, things tend to open up a little bit more. I don't see masculine and feminine as influences that fight with each other. I feel they work perfectly together. But I also feel that sometimes we need to take a feminine approach, a more creative approach, and sometimes we need to take a more dynamic and logical approach. And that's really what it comes down to. You can't take a creative approach, so take the assertive approach. And since we're entering into an Aries Mercury retrograde and you guys are Sagittarians, the assertive approach is probably a little bit easier for you than the creative approach anyways, if that makes sense. The moon moves on by Monday, no more influence. It's out of there. Sayonara, goodbye, see you later. And we're left with Pallas Athene, which continues to be retrograde, which moves into out of focus of your day-to-day schedule and more into focus of those that you love. With Pallas Athene being a fighter, the warrior goddess, we're really not so much fighting with family here as much as we are focusing our energy back to what's more important, if that makes sense. Not that your career isn't important. It is an absolutely very important part of life, for sure. But a lot of times we tend to not be able to focus on both at once. we go back and forth, we flip back and forth. So as we're moving through the week, that focus goes back onto family, but not in an assertive way, more of a understanding, maybe listening way. So I'm seeing different things like, maybe for instance, being so focused on your career goals right now that somebody approaches you and says, I would like some time with you if that's okay. I hate that kind of approach. And it always, I always want to react to it in a very angry, excuse me, but how dare you interrupt me kind of a way. But behind those words is somebody who really needs something. And rather than coming at you the way that they should, which is, please, I need some time, they come at you in that sarcastic, disgusting way. And we tend to react to it, and then it becomes a big old argument, and then nothing actually gets done. They don't get what they need. You don't get what you need. In fact, now you're distracted from what you were focused on, and now you can't do anything. Let's avoid that by understanding what's behind the energy of what somebody says or how they say it. I absolutely hate it when people approach me like that. But I also take a step back before I react and say, okay, what is it that this person is really saying? They're saying that they really, really need my time. They need me to listen. They need my advice. They need whatever. And once you can approach that and deal with that and get through it, you can get back to what you were focused on without having to have all of those distractions come into it, right? So it's just basically you're gauging whether or not this is a hot mess or not, and deciding whether or not it makes any sense to throw arrows into it to make it a hot mess in the first place, right? Yes, they could have chosen a different way to approach you, but you still have power over your reaction and how you handle that situation. And that's really what the lesson is for all of us. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do consider sending a tip or donation through my coffee link in the description. Really appreciate that. You guys are awesome. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. I will see you guys next week. And in the meantime, you guys, make it a great week. Make some magic happen like you always do. Just because there's a Mercury retrograde doesn't mean it's always a bad thing. Sometimes it's the energy that you really, really, really need to make that magic happening. So you can use that Mercury retrograde to your advantage, and you should. I'll see you guys next week. Make it a great week, you guys.